we're going to talk everyone's favorite topic when it comes to training, and that's warm-ups. My views on warm-ups have probably gone full circle over the past 10 years, as I've just probably 15 years, as I've learned more and more about training and just taken in more and more information, and also been in practice longer. I've gone through a variety of views, and I think this is kind of the nature of the fitness and strength world in general. Is like people get bored. Some like very influential person will come out and say that this is the absolute best way to warm up for X based on some science that they are probably it's their proprietary method, right? And then mainstream fitness and health practitioners will like buy into that because it's an expert opinion, right? My opinion is that a warm-up is not something to spend a tremendous amount of time worrying about, but it should do a few things. First and foremost, you need to actually warm up. Like getting physiologically warmed up, having an increase in blood pressure, getting a sweat going, preparing your body for the training you're about to do is super important. The reason that in my own programs I tell people honestly to warm up in ways that feel good to them and that honestly help them like get moving is because it doesn't need to be very complicated. If you're coming back from an injury or you have some specific concern in regards to mobility, it's definitely prudent to do some rehab-oriented exercises, right? And prepare yourself to start to train. But for the most part, you could theoretically just go in and start doing the task you're going to do in training in a lower level and then progress up, right? So the simplest example is often something with a barbell, and it's like you don't need to do a bunch of exercises to go in and prepare to squat. You need to go and squat, right? And build up progressively and practice the movement as you warm it up. But that being said, there are things that sometimes we want to include in a program that might make us feel good. Or they're just things that we know that we're not going to have time for at the end of a session, and we want to do some accessory work before, as we're warming up, right? If you're somebody that benefits from like lunges and you only have 45 minutes to train, then you should definitely do some lunging in your warm up or some step ups or some single leg work as you then go to move into like your barbell exercises, right? There really is no like perfect way to do this other than like the most important thing is that you get in and you train on a consistent basis for a long time. Your warm up is important in and of the fact that you need to get warmed up and get training, but it doesn't have to be more complicated. It also doesn't have to be reductionistic to this, like you should only be doing the exercises or sport specific tasks, right? You can literally go in and just like dance to warm up. And I've actually done stuff like this where I've incorporated a little bit more jumping and like playing around into my warm-up, and it's just kind of fun, and making training kind of fun helps us continue to train for the long term. So all this to say is I used to be of the camp. Well, I remember, when I first got into fitness, it was high school weight room stuff. And like, we didn't warm up at all. Like, we jumped rope, like we got going, and I shouldn't say that. We did warm up, but it wasn't like a very extensive warm up. And that's because of the time demands of that type of situation. And that there's like often 40 kids in the weight room. Warm-ups are a good time to prime yourself to be focused on training, but they don't have to be crazy specific. I went through a stage where it's like, this is the best warm-up, for bench press. This is the best warm-up for squat mobility and all these things. And I've just found those to not necessarily like be true, but it doesn't mean they were bad either. It just means that they were like something that somebody did that they then spit out and it became like, this is the best exercise for this, right? Then I went to the stage where it's like, no, all you have to do is just go and do the thing you're going to do. And I still think that's a really true statement. You just have to progress slowly and give yourself enough time to actually warm up. Where I am now is often, my warm up looks like a bike ride, a slow jog for a little while, some easy jumping rope, and then maybe a few exercises that I know that I'm not going to get in at the end of my session. Even like stuff like sit-ups or lunges and just moving around, Cossack squats. So it's like movements that are not going to be loaded super heavy and that are honestly just feel good movements. And then I get into my barbell work or whatever the main piece of the day is. Like, that is not that different from any of this other stuff. It's just the acknowledgement that there is no best way to do this. You just have to get in, and over time, your training needs to get better. You need to progress. You need to get stronger. You need to actually push yourself. And if you do that over the long run, your warm-up doesn't really matter.